Yeah, pretty sure. Is that okay? The brain.
All right.
The brain is the seat of the spiritual faculties. Human brain is truly the most marvelous creation in the whole universe. What's that? We got it? It's the source of all the spiritual faculties, which include rational thought, emotions, ideals, memory, knowledge, faith, and Torah. It's all in the mind, the brain. The brain is a storehouse of all the thoughts and experiences of a person's life, good and bad. We must utilize that storehouse properly, as its contents are what a person takes to Olam Haba. If one receives a large storehouse as a gift, he should not stuff it with all kinds of garbage, but use it to store the things he really needs. If people fill their brains with the many foolish things that they read in magazines, see on television, or unimportant ideas that they hear in idle conversation, they are loading up their minds with empty thoughts. They're taking this wonderful storehouse, which has the most powerful information filing and retrieval system, and using it to record inconsequential trivia. Is this what they want to remember forever and take with them to the world to come? All the superfluous and harmful things will be taken along, and they will testify against them in the final day of judgment. Instead, they should work with all their abilities to fill their minds with Torah, Yirah Shamayim, and Midas Tovos. When a person dies, he takes nothing with him to Olam Haba except for the contents of his mind. And even though his brain is in the grave with the rest of his body, the contents of his brain are carried off to the world to come. When a man stores, what a man stores in his mind is the most important achievement of all the good deeds that a person could do. The best good deeds to fill his mind with Torah thoughts. Nothing is as important as what we are thinking. When a person is able to put into his mind even an additional verse, Chazal or Halacha, it's a treasure to keep forever and ever in the world to come. Okay, so this, he went off on a little tangent of Musa here, but Lamaisa, in that brain, and when you see a picture of the brain, it's very hard to understand how everything's there. Where is it? It's a lot of, right, Simcha, you could help us here, a lot of electronic things flying back and forth, I guess. But like, where is it? Where is it, right? Now, today it's a little easier to understand, I guess, because we have computers, and where is it in the computer, right? It's also all made up of whatever, numbers or whatever, I don't know. I don't understand computers, and I don't understand the brain. Right? In the old days, they had filing cabinets, right? And you just put it in the filing cabinet. You saw what you had. You knew what you had. It was all there. But where is it in the brain? All this stuff we're talking about, where is it? Where is it? It's there. He calls it the most marvelous creation in the whole universe. And he's telling us side here that everything we put in our brain, that's what we're taking with us. That's the suitcase that we're packing for Olam Haba. So he says you shouldn't fill it up with too much garbage. And on the next page, on 250, he says, you are what you think you are, what's in your mind. That is the person you are. That is the personality you have, and that is your future in the world to come. And so the lev, the mind, is the seat of the spiritual faculties and is the most prized of all the possessions that you have. That's why Hashem made the brain the most complicated thing in the universe. Although the universe is very complicated, and even the smallest part of it is filled with endless wisdom, nothing can compare to the complexity of the brain. The brain can receive thousands of messages from all parts of the body and all of the senses every second. It sorts them out and generates the appropriate level of automatic responses to direct all the functions in the body that require automatic guidance. A person is consciously aware of what he's doing, and he puts concepts and ideals into his mind. He's utilizing it for the biggest, most important benefit that he can have in this world. And now he puts a little note in here. It's true that you already know most of these things we are saying here, but still pays to say them. It pays to remind ourselves by repeating these things again and again, because it is human nature to ignore the facts that are most well known. Right? That's the Hakdama of the Messiah Yishar, right? Yeah. Right? He's not saying anything new. He's saying everything we know. 3 times a day we say, all the living will thank you forever, right? What do we mean by this? Are these just words? There are two intentions here, says Rav Noah. It's a declaration that all living things are obligated to thank Hashem forever. Right? And it's a prayer that the eyes of all men be open to recognize the truth so that they thank him forever. It's as if we're davening, they should. They do and they should. The significance is that even though we're aware of so many things that Hashem does, we need to remind ourselves that we all have to be grateful. When we say these words, it's a good idea to always focus our minds. Right? We all have. Every single one of us has so much to be grateful for, especially after we're learning this for so long now. And yet sometimes we don't feel happy. Right? Sometimes we're not in a good mood. And it shouldn't be, right? But we're not focused. We're forgetting. Some people say that it's boring to learn things they know already. They're looking for a chiddush. My answer is that the biggest chiddush lies in the fact that there's so much we know but continue to ignore. That's the biggest chiddush. The chiddush is for us to overcome our neglect of what we know. So that's the first part of the brain that he's talking about, is the Mishkan HaKoiches HaRuchniim. It's where the spiritual, all this stuff, the emotional, the thoughts, the ideals, the memories, all that stuff, Torah, that's where it resides. It's like a storehouse. Umabua hahergish, but he continues, this, the brain is also the mabua hahergish v'shorish hatzovim. It's the source of all sensation and the source of the nerves. As besides it being the place where we store everything, and like he says, that really is us. That constitutes our being, and that's why we have to take Toilam Haba. But besides that, the brain is the command, module or whatever of the body. When we feel with our fingers that something is cold or wet, that feeling occurs in the brain. When we feel the sharpness of a thorn or a nail, that feeling is in the brain. It's not in your finger, it's in the brain. The sensation is nothing more than an electrical signal carried by the nerves. It's only when the signal gets to the brain that it is interpreted as a sensation. Likewise, hearing is in the brain and seeing is in the brain. All experiences of the brain occur, all experiences of the body occur in the brain. The nervous system is an extremely complex network of nerves which are like wires made up of special cells that are interconnected throughout the body. These nerves use electrical impulses to gather information about what's happening in every part of the body. This information is analyzed in the central part of the system, which consists essentially of the brain and the spinal cord. The brain communicates with the rest of the body by the nerves, giving instructions to all parts of the body what to do and when to do it. So you have it on one hand, all the information coming to the brain analyzes it, and the brain sends out messages. The internal organs of the brain, of the body, such as the heart, stomach, and intestines, are regulated by the part of the nervous system called the autonomic nervous system. Autonomic. In most situations, we are unaware of the workings of this system because its function is in involuntary manner. For example, we do not notice when blood vessels change size or when our heart beats faster. It's typically up to the conscious brain to decide when we are in danger and when we can relax. Subconscious part of the brain then tells various master regulator nerves in the spinal cord to adjust the bodily functions accordingly. For example, if we're in danger of the heart beats faster, blood pressure increases, and digestion slows down. Blood vessels feeding the digestive organs become constricted to slow down the flow of blood to those organs. You don't need it there. You don't need it by the digestive organs right now. So the vessels, they constrict. The blood slows down going. At the same time, the blood vessels feeding the muscles of the limbs and the lungs are dilated. So a person will have more energy to run away from the danger and defend himself. This is all Nefloyas Hashem, but it's all from the brain. When a person's brain decides that he should urinate, the sphincter muscle relaxes, releasing the flow of urine from the bladder. At the same time, the muscle walls of the bladder tighten, squeezing the bladder to eject the urine. The functions of the body are under the control of the brain. If the person had to control all the involuntary functions of the body consciously, he would not have time to think. If you had to think about breathing and think about your heart beating and your body digesting, you'd be busy the whole time. You wouldn't be able to think. It's a great chesed of Hashem that He helped design our nervous system so that our conscious mind is freed from the mundane chores of keeping the body running as it should. Any small impairment of the brain can change a normal person into a cripple. Without proper functioning of his brain, he might not be able to move his arms, eat, walk, talk, or think. Impairment is not in his leg or in his tongue, it's in the brain. So when you say, you should thank Hashem for that quiet organ in our head, which we never think about. Now you have to think about the brain, but you think about the brain with the brain. Some people have never thought about it all their lives. You're so fortunate to learning Chovos Levavos, so at least you get to mention it once. Some people may think that's not important enough to pay attention to, but when you realize what a great kindness Hashem did for us in giving us such a complex and powerful system, we surely owe Him a debt of endless gratitude. That's the brain. V'harechem l'kayim hazera. And we have the womb to sustain the seed and produce a child. Okay, we spoke about this already, about the womb and giving birth and all of that. So let's move on a little. The rest of the limbs of the body. There's more unknown, more hidden. The benefits of these limbs, there's more unhidden than what we do know. He says on the bottom of 253, no matter how much we learn, it will only be a small part of the knowledge that exists about the complexities of the body system. The more we learn, the more we realize what we don't know. As we discover more, the horizon recedes and new vistas become available. Our minds are open to realize that the subject is essentially bottomless. The functions of the body are so complicated, there are truly miracles beyond the ability of any human being to grasp. It's like a person who thinks he discovered America. He lands on a strange seashore, sees wonderful things there, but immediately returns to Europe. He doesn't realize that what he missed was far greater than his world imagined. What scientists are discovering today is the tiniest fraction of the great miracles that are yet to be known and may never be. Okay. So similarly, the way the body works inside the body, for someone who gives it some thought, how the food that a person eats is divided and gets to all the parts. So he explains here, if a person eats a piece of bread, the body's digestive system distributes the nourishment throughout the body. Not only that, the digestive system transforms that piece of bread into thousands of new substances that are entirely different from the original. Those substances are then separated into minuscule packages and delivered by the bloodstream to those organs that need them. This is done without any mistakes. Every one of the thousands of packages delivered at the right address out of all the thousands of possible destinations in the body. Any mistaken delivery process could result in catastrophe. You'll see signs of the Chachma, will inspire him to give thanks to Hashem, will praise him for them. At every part of the body. When he says, again, we said it could either be us expressing thank Hashem for it, or it's the body speaks. The wisdom in the body shouts out. So every part of the body testifies to the greatness of Hashem, to His kindness. Of course, that doesn't mean we leave it up to the parts. Body parts don't talk, it's up to us. That's how he explains it, to the extent of our abilities to be spokesmen for those parts to speak to Hashem or whatever we recognize, to thank him for it and to marvel at it. And although the body has many functions, its most important function is to express thanks to Hashem for the body itself. As David HaMelech said, Toiv lahodos Hashem u'lezamer l'shimcha elyon. That's good. It's good to give thanks to Hashem. And Magolu Masecha Hashem Moed Omku Machshaveisecha. V'hu, he goes on to explain this, that he said, when you see how the body works, V'hu Shamachal Hoyochel HaBeten, the food goes to the stomach, B'ta'ola, in a channel, Muchenes Al Kav Yashel, straight. Ein Ba'ikim, there's no twisting, below Ivos, no bending, V'hu HaVeshet, which we call the esophagus. The passage of food directly into the stomach through the esophagus is not as simple as it thinks. Why should it go down? Why doesn't it get stuck along the way? The esophagus is a comparatively narrow tube, but it's lined with a mucous membrane so the food does not get stuck. Also, the movement of swallowed food down this channel does not depend on gravity. Even if a person is lying down, right, so the gravity wouldn't do anything, the food would be pushed along because the channel is lined with muscle that works with what's called peristaltic action. That action looks like an ocean wave moving through the muscle. The muscle contracts to produce a narrowing and then propels the narrow portion slowly down the length of the organ. These waves of narrowing push the food and fluid in front of them through to the stomach. Similar action is used in the intestines. The circular muscle, called the esophageal sphincter, separates the esophagus and the stomach. As food is swallowed, this muscle relaxes, forming an opening through which the food can pass into the stomach. Then the muscle contracts, closing the opening to prevent food from moving back into the esophagus. It's unbelievable how every step is worked out perfectly. It just couldn't happen on its own. You would die before it evolved. Right? The food wouldn't get to your stomach. You need that process. So you put it in your mouth. Let's figure out somehow, it has to go to your stomach. If it wouldn't be that there was this tremendously complicated system of muscles, and like you said, that it's lined with mucus, so it flows down and it's pushed by the muscles, you wouldn't live. So every little part is really, and then the stomach digests it, grinds it up. Originally we learned how the different teeth and the tongue start the digestive process in the mouth. The saliva and the enzymes and the crushing it and the biting and chewing it. So, but afterwards, the stomach takes that stuff and does it more thoroughly. In what way does the stomach grind up food? The stomach uses a powerful concentration of hydrochloric acid that breaks down the food into its underlying components. So it's no longer recognizable. So you have this powerful acid in your stomach. The food comes into it and it breaks it down. This powerful acid can dissolve almost anything that is organic, and yet miraculously does not attack the lining of the walls of the stomach. We could eat the stomachs of cattle, chew them and digest them with the hydrochloric acid in our own stomach. Yet our own stomach is not being digested. It's a stira minei ubei. If this acid's strong enough to digest the stomach of a cow, then why doesn't it digest your stomach? So he says, this is one of the wonders that we need to think about. The lining of the stomach contains special cells that continuously secrete a protective bicarbonate solution that neutralizes the acid. So when you eat the stomach of the animal, it's dead. It's not producing this solution. So the acid takes it apart, but your stomach has this lining. Amazingly, the lining of the stomach is also a source for the hydrochloric acid. So it's like the Asian Mayim in Borat. It should cancel itself out, and yet it doesn't. This is difficult for us to understand, but somehow the dissolving action of the acid is allowed to proceed for the contents of the stomach, at the same time that it's blocked for the material of the stomach lining. Simcha, you study these things. It's you could really study these things. Remember, so if it could open up your eyes. Hashem has given us an organ that can manage the process of digestion in a way that will not harm us. However, in some individuals, this defense system does not work as also should. These people can get peptic ulcers. A peptic ulcer is a small hole caused by the hydrochloric acid eating away at the lining of the stomach or the duodenum, the first 12 inches of the small intestine. There are many possible reasons for the wearing away of the stomach wall and the thinning of the protective mucus. These include having an excitable nature, germs from contaminated food, excess aspirin usage, and cigarette smoking. For most people who take care of the heart and live a normal life, their stomach walls are able to produce the protective substance and resist the effect of the acid. Okay, let's stop here. We'll continue tomorrow a little more with the digestive system.
Oh, yeah.
But it's unbelievable. It's
Fascinating. That was fascinating.
It's a little bit
You have to be able- you have
little
to learn
crazy
these
how
things.
many Levias there were today.
Yes,
Yeah.
very difficult day. Very difficult day.
Rabbi Tversky just passed away.
Right, right.
Shiner.
Tversky, from Tversky.
Yeah.
Rabbi Avram Tversky. Yeah.
The author. He wrote a,
Very difficult day.
Right, Barry. I'm sure Right Barry is at that. That's a Reb David Soloveitchik. It was
Right, was his Rebbe, right? He was at the Levaya all morning. Tonight he has a chasana.
Wow.
Wow.